Hey, this is Mr. Coker, and this video is a request for Shane, and um, it's solving this problem from assignment 3-1. So what we're doing here is solving quadratics by factoring. Now you can solve this in different ways. You could solve it by completing the square. You could solve it, of course, always with the quadratic formula. And you can solve by factoring, which is what this video is going to show how to do. Actually, I think I will add quadratic formula in there, just at least a setup. The primary way to do it is by factoring. That's what this assignment is about. And what that tells us, and I'm going to write it with the X method. You don't have to do the X method, but that's how I'm going to do to write this out. So remember, on top for the X method, you would put your A value times your C value. A times C. The A value is 1 because there's nothing in front of K, so that's a 1. It's 1K squared. Remember, if there's no number, it's a 1. And then the C value is 12. So 1 times 12 is, of course, 12. And then on bottom, we put the B value, which is -8. So A times C goes on top, and B goes on bottom. Okay, now we're going to find the numbers that multiply to make 12 and the add to make -8. To make 12, we could have the following numbers combinations: 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. 1 plus 12 would give us 13. Now let me back up a second. These are factors. Now we want to add and see which one gives us -8. And there's a trick here, as you probably can tell. If I add each pair of numbers, 1 plus 12, and I just want to be clear, all of these, 1 times 12 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12, 3 times 4 is 12. Just want to be clear on that. Now do adding. 1 plus 12 equals 13. 2 plus 6 equals 8, positive 8. And 3 plus 4. And I'm going to write these out, actually. Three plus 4 is 7. Now, if you notice, they're all positive. We need a negative. So what we're going to do is, remember that a positive times a positive is positive, and a negative times a negative is also positive. So while these pairs work, the positive positive, so do negative negative. So all of these combinations of numbers also make multiply to make 12. Now I'm going to again add each pair, and you can probably see which one is what we're looking for. -1 plus -12 is -13. -2 plus -6 is -8. Ding, 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 ding. And -3 plus -4 is -7. So this is the one we're looking for. So on the side, on the sides, I'm going to put the -2 and the -6. Now this is the part where typically if we have a coefficient in front of, for the A value, we have something bigger than 1 over here. We have a number here for A. We would draw our lines and we would do over, in this case it's a 1, so we put it over 1. Of course, anything divided by 1 is itself, so this becomes -2 and -6. But that's not your final answer. Because we're solving, we're not factoring, we just flip these numbers. We just flip them. And our answers are going to say x equals -2 and positive 2. Positive 2. Negative becomes positive. Negative becomes positive. X equals positive 2 and x equals positive 6. Okay? Hope that makes sense. You could also do, I said that I'll at least set up for the quadratic formula, and the reason I'm going to do that, so keep this, if you need, pause it, go ahead, because I'm going to erase it. Okay, but it's a video, so you can pause it. My lovely handwriting for as long as you like. Now, I shouldn't have erased the problem, but that's okay, because I know what the problem is. It was k squared minus 8k plus 12 equal to 0. Anyway, remember the quadratic formula? And by the way, I don't suggest doing this method. Unless you're just going to do it every time and you have a calculator that's good for it, which some phone calculators are. So even if you have a phone calculator, well, I know Shane, if this video was for Shane specifically, Shane, I know you got a calculator, so you could always do quadratic formula pretty easy. But when we're doing the quadratic formula, and the reason I'm doing it, just want to be clear, the reason I'm going to do it in two ways. The first way was by factoring. All of this assignment is supposed to be by factoring, so you can factor every one on assignment 31. The reason I'm going to do it in quadratic formula is just that it might jog your memory. If you don't need it, just shut this video off and I'll just be talking to myself, okay? If you don't need this, shut it off. If you have trouble factoring, we'll continue, okay? So, quadratic formula, b squared, or negative b squared, of course, plus or minus. What am I even doing, man? I got ahead of myself. It's not b squared. It's just b. It's just negative b. I'm getting ahead of myself because of this b squared. Negative b, not squared, just negative b, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. So, okay, negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. Okay, what we do now, we take the a, b, and c values. Anytime we see a b, we put in -8. Something I want to be clear on. That's why I always am saying, you probably don't remember me saying, it. When you see a negative, it becomes positive. I'm not putting that negative. You could even put it in a calculator. It's fine. I'm just going to put the +8 because the negative and negative cancel and become positive. When I do that, I'm also going to, inside where I see 8, where I put a b, and it's -8, I'm going to put a positive. And there is a reason for this. You can put parentheses -8, close parentheses, square. But a lot of times students make a mistake and they do something wrong and they get a domain error. And then they think, well, it's just no solution. If you put -8 without parentheses and you square it, it will give you an error. almost every time it'll give you a domain error. Almost every time. And if it doesn't give you a domain error, it'll still give you the wrong answer. So don't do it. Just be careful with it, okay? My suggestion is when it's a negative b, when the b in the problem's negative, just put positives instead. Don't put any negatives, just put positives on the first two. I've seen that students make fewer mistakes that way. Okay? A. A is 1. There's no coefficient listed, so it's a 1. So anytime I see an A, which is twice, I put in a 1. And if I see a C, I put in 12. Now this can go in a calculator. You'll have a plus version and a minus version. I'm going to do it by hand. You can just put this whole thing in a calculator. You can put A plus square root 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 12. On bottom of a fraction, I suggest always hit your fraction button on this part. And that will go on top. And on bottom, put 2 times 1. Hit enter. It'll give you an answer. Then do the same thing, but instead of 8 plus square root, you're going to put 8 minus square root. I cannot help but work this out just because I like math. I'm going to work it out by hand this time, with just doing the discriminant. 8 squared is 64. 4 times 1 times 12 is 48. Eight plus or minus 64 minus 48 is 16. I'm going to simplify 2 times 1 and make it 2. And now I'm going to do square root of 16 is 4. 8 plus or minus 4 over 2. 8 plus 4 is 12. I'm going to write it over here. 8 plus 4 divided by 2. 8 plus 4 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. 8 minus 4 over 2. 8 minus 4 is 4. Divided by 2 is 2. Notice it gives you the same answers that you got by factoring. Like I said, I didn't make this add this part just to be confusing. If you don't need the factoring, if you don't need the quadratic formula part, if you're like, oh, factoring, I got it. Hopefully you're not even watching this part then. But I just wanted to be a completionist about it. So anyway, that's assignment 3-1, problem number 1. 2 ways of doing it. Now as I sit behind the camera, I see my handwriting. Oh my goodness, my handwriting does not look great, but hey, it's legible, and I think that's what matters. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good day.